welcome back to my channel. My name is Sinead. On this channel I share my tips and experience regarding the IB program, study tips, and other student life stuff. And on this video I'm going to be talking about something that I know a lot about, and hopefully I can share with you guys as much helpful information about this topic as possible, and that is how to ace the IB physics exams. Now, a lot of people perceive HL physics as impossible, it's the hardest course in the IB, but for me it was my favorite subject. I worked really hard for it and eventually I came out with pretty good marks. I figured out along the way what tactics worked for me, what strategies worked for me, and today I'm going to be sharing that all with you guys. So just a bit of background on what I got, because you might want to know that. I did HL physics and I sat the November 2019 exams, and I did the astrophysics option, hence why I'm wearing my NASA shirt. So yeah, I ended up getting a 7 in HL physics. I got 81 points out of 100 when you needed a 69, so I was about 12 points above the grade boundary for a 7, so I sat pretty comfortably with my 7. I scored 7s on all of my papers and I got a perfect mark, 24 out of 24 in my IA. And if you want to see stuff about my IA and the physics IA in general, I have videos on those, so check those out. But in this video we're going to be talking about the physics IA and how you can get that 7 and how I got that 7, all of the tactics, knowledge, and information that I use to get that 7. This video is actually going to be the first in a 3-part series, because I think there's essentially 3 main aspects to doing well in physics. That is 1, understanding physics, 2, being able to apply and remember knowledge in physics, and 3, actually being prepared for the actual tests and exams. So in this video we're going to be diving into the understanding part of physics. So I'm going to be sharing you guys tips on how you can better understand physics, how you can study for physics so that you better understand it, so when it comes down to the application part you can actually do it kind of easily. Given the nature of the IB physics program, it's not enough to just memorize the content. You have to understand the fundamental concepts, otherwise they could throw you the problem that's super weird, which if you'd just done all of the past papers before, then you probably wouldn't have gotten. But if you understand the fundamental concepts, you'll be able to take knowledge from doing the past papers and apply them to the weird questions. The purpose of truly understanding the concepts is that it comes into play when those weird questions are thrown at you. Lots of people who just do the past papers and try to memorize the mark schemes and memorize how to use the equations don't really do well when they're thrown a weird, difficult problem. Understanding is definitely something that comes with time and effort. It's not something that you can just get right away, but it's something you want to strive for in physics. I never thought I would ever understand electricity and magnetism. I was working on trying to understand that for a month basically, just focusing on electricity and magnetism, because it just made no sense to me. I was very confused by it. But eventually, as I kept trying to understand it, I got there over time. And you can get there too if you put in the effort too. So how can you tell if you understand something in physics? Well, in this video I'm going to be talking about the Feynman technique, which basically I use throughout my whole physics journey in IB. If you get to the particle physics chapter in physics, you'll have heard of Feynman before. Feynman is actually a famous physicist, and he is most famous for his ability to distill complex concepts into something that the layperson can understand. Feynman argued that you can understand a concept if you can explain it simply and answer questions about it. What the Feynman technique is essentially it's a technique to try and strengthen your understanding of a subject. So what you do is you try and explain the concept in the most simplest terms possible in order to test your understanding of it. I use this constantly throughout physics in order to try and test my understanding of something. I would try to write out an explanation of a concept by writing it on a piece of paper, making a video about it. If any of my friends were struggling with the topic, I would grab them, try and explain it to them, because that way it helps both people, it helps my friend, but then it also helps me build my understanding of the subject. Whilst I'm trying to explain it to them, I'm also trying to conceptualize it in my head and try and distill it down into its fundamental parts, and that is helpful for me just as much as it is helpful for them. Essentially, I found that if I felt confident enough to explain a concept to my friend, then that is a good indication that you truly understand the thing. So whilst you're studying physics and you're trying to test whether you understand a concept or not, ask yourself if you would be able to explain this concept to a friend. If you feel you couldn't, or maybe there's a gap in your knowledge, go on a quest to try and fill that gap or try and better understand the concept until you are better positioned to be able to explain that concept to a friend. So how can we better develop our understanding in physics? Well, the way I like to think about it is this. You want to try and develop the story in your head about this concept in a way that makes sense for you and in a way that you can apply in tests. So now I'm going to be delving into some tactics that can help build your understanding and build your knowledge of physics. The first one is to read about concepts from different perspectives. This is really important. You might find that the textbook is really annoying and you find it really boring and you don't like the way that things are written. Don't just stick to that textbook, go search for other sources. You shouldn't beat yourself up if you can't immediately understand something from a textbook. It may just not be written the way that your brain best understands concepts. I had like a bunch of different textbooks that I would reference, and if I couldn't understand it from my main textbook, which was the Pearson's textbook, I would go and look at other textbooks. I would read the Oxford textbooks, I would read the study guides until I could find an explanation that worked for me. If you have more than one physics teacher in your school, I would go and like ask the other physics teacher. I had 2 physics teachers in my school, and the one who was actually my teacher, I found that like sometimes he explained things way too complicatedly and I just needed something super simple, so I would go to the other physics teacher who was able to explain things like less detailed but more simple, and so yeah, I would do that. Don't be afraid to reach out to other teachers who aren't a physics teacher, because I find like having that like explanation and help from different perspectives is really helpful. I'm like super into video, like I really like to learn from videos. So if I wasn't understanding a concept, I would watch like a million videos about it until like I understood what was going on. So I mainly went to Chris Donor for like specific IB physics knowledge, but if I didn't get like his concept or like it didn't quite click for me, then I went to look at Khan Academy, I'd look at Science Shorts. Those are all really good resources that can help build your understanding. I would just like Google the concept and just watch like all the first 10 videos about it until I found one that I found was interesting and that was digestible. Eventually over time I like learned to understand the concepts. The benefit of reading from different perspectives is that hopefully over time you kind of get to distill like the fundamental concepts from all of these perspectives and like ignore all of like the gunk that kind of like makes them up. This source of repetition like actually aids your understanding, and hopefully over time as you read more and more concepts, get more and more perspective, you'll be able to like distill the fundamental parts of a concept and have a really clear understanding of that concept. The second tactic is that whilst absorbing content, you want to be constantly asking yourself questions. We don't need to be egotistical and just assume we're going to understand quantum mechanics after reading a BuzzFeed article about it. Whilst you're reading, if you sense that there's a hole in your understanding, like turn that into a question and then like really dive into Googling this question until you fill that gap in your understanding. Because trust me, IB physics is all about filling those gaps. You do one lesson of something in school, but then, you know, like the teacher left all out these different parts, and it's kind of on your own merit and effort to go and try and fill those gaps and fill that understanding. The teachers only have so much time in class, so they're going to be skipping a lot of things, and you're going to need to fill those gaps with like your own study and research. You may be reading about mechanics and then you come across the word momentum and you think, huh, what's momentum? I don't remember learning about that in class. I kind of have an intuition for it, but like, what does it mean in physics? And then you realize that your teacher forgot to teach you about momentum, or like you didn't really pay attention in class. So then you go like and do some researching and you do some practice problems on momentum, and then you fill in that gap for momentum. And then after that, maybe you're thinking like, huh, how does this relate to kinetic energy? And then you go figure out how it relates to kinetic energy, and like you just go on this like cycle of curiosity. Asking questions is definitely really important in physics. Constantly trying to be like, wait, why is this happening? Like, what, why? Like, why? I'm telling you, in physics, there's always an answer for why, so just keep asking those questions. Finally, my biggest tip is to think about the big picture. It's very easy to lose the forest from the trees. That is, like, drill so deep into like one specific area that you kind of forgot where you were, and then you suddenly become like overwhelmed and stuff. What I like to do is this thing that I learned from Ali Abdaal, which is called scoping the subject. This is where you draw a mind map or write a list of all of the big ideas, essential equations that make up a topic. You try to like get rid of anything that's useless. You don't really write many sentences. It's just like the big ideas, big equations, and like short summaries of things. This doesn't have to be that complicated. Like for example, scoping the subject of mechanics, you just might be like, okay, let's think about what the big things are in mechanics. Energy, forces, Suvent, and then yeah, you just have all like basically like the subtitles in all of your textbooks written out. Now I find this incredibly helpful because I feel like being able to see like what a subject is all about, like being able to see everything you need to know, kind of de-stresses you and allows you to see like the bigger picture and see how like everything's connected. So if you ever find yourself like completely lost in a subject, you just don't know what's happening anymore, try and like zoom out, draw like a diagram of all of the big ideas and like look at it like from up here before you start to like drill into the details of how to solve problems. Grab your textbook, make a diagram of all like the chapters. If you're studying a specific chapter, make a diagram of all of like the headings in that chapter and all of like the key points and like all the equations. And finally, I just like to give a shout out to some of the physics resources that I use. So there's a YouTuber called Chris Donor who makes amazing physics content for the IB. It's IB specific, and what he does is he goes through his concepts, but then in between he pauses and gives you like a practice IB question. So I would recommend like watching those and like pausing to try and actually do the question before like he gives the answer, and then like seeing if you got it right or not. What I like to do with his videos is that I like to watch him like explain a concept or a diagram, not make notes while doing it, but like pause and then like close the laptop and then write notes out for myself. That like forces you to like engage your brain and try and remember what he was talking about, rather than just like passively copying down notes. I would also use Khan Academy a lot for subjects like electricity and magnetism. They were really helpful. I also really like Science Shorts, who made A-level content for physics. So he did content for like A-level physics students, but like because it's still physics, it's the same thing. He basically covers the same content, he just does a few extra things that IB students don't do, so yeah. I also found this really good website online called Concordian Physics or something, and they've just got like a bunch of resources split up into the different chapters. So they've got like a mechanics chapter, and they've got like practice questions for specifically mechanics, and like videos and stuff like that specifically for mechanics. So I'm gonna leave all of these in the description below. And yeah, that's the end of this video. Stay tuned for the next video in which we're going to be talking about how to approach physics problems and how to remember stuff that you need to remember for physics. Thanks for watching. Bye.